Good morning, Rancho. Working on a new theme song for the show. The theme song that plays right now is actually from my album, Psychic for Radio, Standing Wave. I was hoping to put this off. I've been sick all week. The news broke yesterday. I've been predicting this for quite some time, and this was going to be my first political one. I wanted to have the co-host, but this has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed now, because this weekend is the open house for Dove Canyon Plaza's redevelopment, rezone request. So, Dove Canyon Plaza, this came up in the 2016 election. I have two videos about it. I'm going to link them in the comments. I'm going to avoid diving in too deep in this one, just kind of keep it light. I'm going to do my best to overlay documents that I'm going to read from so that you can see them. At the end, I'm going to tack on City Council audio from June of 2016 and October of 2016 so that you can hear the discussions that were going on. So if you don't know where Dove Canyon Plaza is, it's a shopping center over by the entrance to Dove Canyon, over near Santa Margarita Catholic High. It's a low rent area, meaning it is actually inexpensive to rent there, which is nice. Because of restrictions on signage, a lot of people don't realize it's there. If you're over in Melinda Heights or something, you never get over there, you never know it's there. It's kind of behind Smart and Final. And that's okay, because there's a ton of people from Dove Canyon Plaza, Coto de Casa, or Dove Canyon, Coto de Plaza, Casa, that go there. You know, there's cleaners and dentists and pet shops and all these things. Now, a new company, Rancho Investment Corporation, came along in I guess it was about 3 years ago exactly, and they bought it. It was weird because it wasn't up for sale, and I talk about this in one of the older videos. The tax value on it was under $10 million, but for some reason they paid over $20 million for it, which I'm reading from notes to make sure I get this all right, which is super weird. Now, I'm going to name names in this, which I normally avoid doing, but these are the players, and this is what was going on. And some of what I'm going to tell you is my connecting dots. They may or may not be correct. I believe they're correct, but it's me connecting dots. When I speak about the Chamber of Commerce in context of this, I'm speaking about the old Chamber of Commerce, not the new revamped one. Okay, so Suzanne Singh ran the Chamber of Commerce. She ran it as a paid employee, as an executive. She was also hired by the city after they disbanded the Citizen Volunteer Community Development Group and was paid almost $80,000 a year to bring business to the city, which she never did. She has a long relationship with Councilman Beal and Councilwoman Gamble. And it is believed that she had something to do with putting this deal together. I know two people who were looking to get office space in Dove Canyon Plaza because it suited them. It was near them, their client base and everything else. And they went to Commerce Mixers with Suzanne and asked her about it. And she said, "No, you don't want to go in there. It's a done deal. It's going to be rented out. Let me find you another place." Now, this was 2.5 years ago. So Suzanne was under the impression this was a done deal. Now, an interesting thing, and I'm going to have to jump around on the timeline a little bit. So it was 2 years ago this month, at the beginning of January, that word got out that there was a private investigator that was looking into what was going on at Dove Canyon Plaza. And some of these lines were getting drawn. I believe money ran out or something. But I saw some of what was going on. Mere weeks later, Suzanne got a job working for another city, didn't tell anybody here until like 4 months later. And I don't want to get into her personal life or anything else, but the company who bought this, Raintree Investments, they were putting a significant amount of money into the Chamber of Commerce, and they were sponsoring city events and the state of the city and all these things that frankly should be free to the public, but we had to pay to go and do them. You had to be a member to get ribbon cutting and all these things that didn't make any sense for a proper Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce opened a new office with business center space, and they had money and they redid a logo and a website and all of that. all this was done while Raintree was involved. Now, when Suzanne kind of left, Raintree stopped being involved in anything. Now, there was a lot of noise made about the Plaza during the 2016 election. Tony Beale was constantly saying, oh, it's just political. And he was basically pointing at me because I was the only one running against them. Now, I never brought it up as a campaign issue. People that live there brought it to my attention. I investigated it. I agreed with them that it was something that shouldn't be done. And I have spent years now suggesting that the city proactively pass a moratorium on this kind of rezoning for, like 10 years or something. They could have done that because they kept insisting there was nothing before them to vote on. Now, keep in mind also, I used to hang out with everybody on the city council except for Jerry. Keep in mind, Jerry Holloway, who's currently the mayor, has always sort of been to the side of what I consider the group. So, like, Tony and Carol have been there since the beginning. Tony worked for Carol, Brad worked for Tony, Mike worked for Brad, and worked for Mike. So you've got that group, and then you've got Jerry to the side. So when I say, I used to hang out with these people, it doesn't include Jerry. Jerry, as far as I know, doesn't socialize with the people on the council, but they do socialize together. So I was at a number of parties with these folks. I don't drink alcohol, and people were getting drunk and talk was happening. So I heard a lot of things. Now, unfortunately, if I were to tell you specifics, then it's I said, they said, maybe I get hit for libel. One thing I'll tell you is now I'm not going to do it because it's pretty. Okay, so that center is about 70,000 square feet. It generates about 1.3 million a year in revenue at best. They've driven out a lot of the companies now. So the open house that's coming up this weekend, which I'm going to put a link to below, please sign up and come because there needs to be an overwhelming amount of support against a rezone. These people believe it's a done deal. They have a reason to believe it's a done deal, in my opinion. And the links I'm going to give you to the audio, you're going to hear, despite the fact that they say they can't interact with the public, you hear Tony and Carol interacting with the public. In the second one, in October of 2016, I was at that one, and I literally saw Tony reach under the table and hit Carol's knee to get her to stop talking because she says too much. Now, after the election, actually like 6 months after the election, one of the residents, and I'll keep their name private, emailed Carol and said, please support keeping Dove Canyon Plaza a business entity. It is simply not fair to Dove residents to devalue the price of their homes with the proposal of high-density housing outside our gate. Now, what they've been proposing, and the owners have met, owners of the plaza have met with people. This isn't guesswork or anything else. They've stated their intent for about 150 high-density units, 3 stories high, on multiple occasions, and you'll hear that in the audio. Now, Carol, this is a little bit long, and I'm going to put a snapshot up while I read it, in case you can't read it from there. So, dear Miss, thank you for your note. However, it appears you have been terribly misinformed. The city of Rancho Santa Margarita has not received nor considered any application for high-density development at Dove Canyon Plaza. That is technically true. There has been no proposal. There has been discussions, and I'm going to put up an email between the city and the developers that show that the discussions were taking place and they were being planned. We don't know how much stuff happened off book, how many people went over there that weren't a quorum, if it was only 2 council people or 1 at a time to speak with them. So there's been no discussion or presentation by any person or entity to either the Planning Commission or city council members. Also true, also word parsing. City staff is not participating in any planning meetings. Not true. We have not been approached by any developer. Not true. We have not seen any plans, whether conceptual or formally submitted. I don't know if they saw what these guys presented to the Dove Canyon residents, but they exist. I am aware that the property has been purchased by a developer who thinks they may want to develop a condo project. No, that's all these people do. In my 22 years of service to this community, I have heard no less than a dozen plans by developers to try to build something that does not conform to the current zoning and master plan. 11 of those plans never came to fruition, and the developer, once it was time to put the plans into action, abandoned their ideas. This is why we fight. One came to fruition, and that was the change of zoning of the former Nissan site. I fought vehemently against that developer, prevailed in a heated ballot initiative, took a 6-month leave of absence from my job with no pay, raised money to personally pay for the opposition to the development, no city funds are legally permitted, and won, preserving the integrity of our zoning. Okay, there's a lot of things that are incorrect here. I was involved in the anti-Measure Z, and I know the people who were coordinating it. They said they never saw Carol at that. Carol makes a 6-figure income, I'm not sure if it's the bulk of her income, as a property owner and the rents. So it's her own company. They do, like, I don't know, architectural design. So if she didn't have a gig, she didn't take any time off. They've also stated that the city council did not have any opinions about that rezone, and she is refuting that here. So we have a whole basket of things that are not true. Now, to continue, I have received many emails from Dove Canyon residents indicating they have been led to believe there is an active application for the zone change. That's not true. They wanted to stop anything from happening before it happened. I am saddened to learn you are the victim of misinformation. You may find it helpful to know that there are 2 people who are fueling this misinformation campaign in Dove Canyon, and you should not be surprised to learn they were both former failed city council candidates who may be stirring this matter up to give it another try in the 2018 election. Okay, I was the only one that ran against them. She is specifically libeling me here to a resident of the city. And I talked to the city attorney, and he's like, this is unacceptable. I mean, I deserve an apology for this because she is spreading lies about me in her official capacity at this time as the mayor of the city. Okay, and then she does a little wrap-up and claims they have nothing to do with it. Now, I do expect to get some blowback on this. When I ran in 2016, because I was the only one, Tony Beal lives up the street from me, so he drives by my house all the time going in and out. 18 years I'd lived here, never had a city agency come by. 3 show up in the space of 6 months after that election. And 2 of the 3 were things that would have been HOA related. So clearly it came from external. I talked to one of the guys. I said I believed it was, retaliatory. And the guy just shook his head. He's like, I am so sick of being used as a pawn. He knew who made it, but he couldn't confirm it to me. So again, I'm guessing based on proximity and attitude. The third one was animal control. And there was a very detailed complaint about my dog. Now, what's interesting is Tony knew I had a dog. What he didn't know is I had gotten rid of the dog. I found a new family for him a year before that. So, also weird, right? Okay, so moving on. Each new residence that's built in town now is a net loss financially to the city. Between the taxes that they generate, which is paltry, the amount of money they spend in town, which unless they're buying cars and eating out every single day, is not nearly enough, the city loses money because we have to increase emergency services and infrastructure around those new residences. There's no financial incentive for this city to approve a rezone. And using the fact that if you read the materials are going, oh, Joanne's closed down over in Foothill Ranch. Well, Joanne's moved to a different building in the same area. I think a bigger one. And, trying to act like, oh, look, it's failing. Well, this has been the plan all along, is to make those businesses shut down. So they tried to shorten people's leases. They've kicked a few people out, something special catering, but the gym went under, and that was the bulk of the revenue. And they couldn't really eat that for 4 years, or 6, however long it would take. So ultimately, they had a lot of people that wanted to go in there, but they were only giving people, really short leases, like maybe a year. So the one that's in there now is doing gangbusters. But them and Dove Canyon Courtyard, I believe both of their leases are up 2021. So you've only got 2 years left. Now, think about the timeline and the employment. This is where we get into conspiracy theories and stuff, but sometimes you got to look at, the big picture and tie the threads together. I might be wrong, but let's look at what's going on. They stopped doing anything 2 years ago. The city council at that time, I was led to believe that both Jerry Holloway and Brad McGurr were against a rezone. I had no word on Mike Vaughn other than he was probably inclined against it. Based on behavior and methinks thou dost protest too much, Tony Beal and Carol Gamble were for the rezone. Now, everything went quiet, and there were going to be 3 seats up for election. Now, I thought Mike made his decision to not run at all late in the game, but it might be that he made it fairly early in the game. And his city planner, Ann Figueroa, Tony Beal put thousands of dollars out of his own campaign funds into Ann's campaign. He had their house was election central. You walk by, they had tons of her signs in the yard for people to come and pick them up. They were coordinating her campaign. They wanted her to get elected. Now, why would they want her to get elected? So let's think about this a little bit. As far as I know, Jerry Holloway will have to recuse himself because he lives and works right near that plaza, so he has a vested interest. So that leaves Brad and Tony and Carol. So if it's just Tony and Carol, then you've got a split vote, and I think it wouldn't pass on a split vote. I might be wrong. However, they got Ann elected, and I believe the only reason they got Ann elected was so that they would have 3 people to approve this no matter what. What I'm hoping by exposing this information is it will create enough of a kerfuffle to stop it. And unfortunately, if I am successful, you'll never know I was successful because it will stop it from happening. So that's okay. I don't need credit for being a prognosticator, but I do want that thing to not be done. Does it personally affect me? No, it does not. It's not near my house. It is just the wrong thing to do for so many reasons, the traffic and safety and everything else over there. And they all seem to think it is a done deal. Now, keep in mind the day jobs of these 3 people I just mentioned. Tony Beal is a real estate attorney. Carol Gamble is basically, a building owner renter. She has a significant amount of experience in real estate. And one of her day jobs is as an interior designer. All of these things have an advantage for development. Now consider the next election is in 2 years. They can't start anything for another 2 years because of the leases. So Carol and Tony don't run again, which is my prediction. They're out. They got this passed, and now they're free to kind of do whatever they want because they're not part of the city government anymore. Now, I'm going to get into some predictions for the city council another time. I'm already going very long here. So keep watching. I know I'm at 20 minutes. It's the longest show I've done. I'm sorry, and it's all politics. This is so important. The city adamantly, and I've tried repeatedly, refuses to have any method whereby your voice can be officially heard. Meaning if we showed up with 30,000 petitions against it, a majority of the city, they can just ignore it. They do not provide us a method short of the elections to deal with this. And this is being timed out perfectly in between the elections. Why do you think it just came up weeks after the new council was sworn in, right at the beginning of the year? The video for the website for the development was just done a couple weeks ago. And now yesterday we find out about this open house this Saturday. There's 2 sessions. I will be there. And I believe it's very important. Everybody in Dove Canyon, let's get a petition going. Make your voices heard. If it comes out, that 10,000 people come out and they're against it and there's nobody saying they're for it, and we've got all these things with financials and what have you, and they pass it, there's some malfeasance, and I believe, a legal action could possibly be taken, and I hope it would be taken. The excuse to do Dahlia Court was because nothing else was there. After they tore out the lot that had the bowl and a Fresh and Easy was supposed to go in there, and that was almost an eminent domain, if I recall. Again, I could be wrong. Dahlia Court got built in there. And I've heard from some of the council that they are not happy that they voted for that. So what the developers do is they make sure that the area is impoverished enough at the point that they make the petition so that they don't have a reasonable reason to say no. But I think you have a reasonable reason to say no if you can go to the people who were there and find out all of the shenanigans that they're playing with the leases to make sure that nobody could be there. That's not negotiating in good faith. But when you watch my other videos and you see everything that has gone on with regard to this, I think you're going to be shocked. So that's this episode of
Okay. Next up is item 3, public comments. This is the time to address the City Council on any matter that is not on our agenda. If you're interested in addressing the council, we ask that you fill out one of these speaker request cards. They're located on that table in the back of the room. Just fill it out, hand it to our city clerk, and we would be very pleased to hear from you. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. There's a green, yellow, and red light to help you know what your time is. And I'm going to call forward our first speaker, Kenny Rabbitt. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Welcome, and thank you for having me, and it's good to be back. So it's been a while. I'm here just to represent some of the business owners in Dove Canyon Plaza. Within the last 2 days, my phone has rang off the hook from concerned residents of mainly Dove Canyon, people that I know, because apparently the word has leaked that they're not renewing leases on our center. So I have a lease until 2021. There's been a letter that's been posted that says they're going to start trying to apply for a rezoning in 2019. In 2019, that would be 2 years before my lease is actually up. My lease is up in 2021. I have a 5-year lease that started in February that was signed this past October. But my concern isn't really for me. I'm going to do fine. If my business was shut down, I do okay. I bought another facility inside of Kodo, and I have other businesses that will support me. But I'm here mainly to talk about the small businesses that aren't going to do well. There's a cleaner there that has a husband who has Alzheimer's. There's other businesses amongst the center that they don't know what they're going to do. So we've always, as a city, been pro-business. I would hope that these new owners aren't just assuming that the zoning is going to be rubber stamped. I watched how you guys stopped the rezoning of the Nissan dealer, and hopefully we'll come with the same fervor to let these new owners know that it's not a done deal. Amongst us owners and amongst, I know socially, these guys are out there and they're coming hard, and they feel like this is a done deal. And I can tell you that this is different from the Bull property. You aren't taking away livelihoods. You're not taking away jobs. It's different from the property that was next to IHOP. You're not taking away jobs. You're not taking away livelihoods. This is a different situation here, and I guarantee you that when it comes to the Planning Commission, you guys remember I went through 2 of those, and this room was filled. This room will be 10 times filled with residents that have concerns. And they're asking me for help. I'm torn because, you know what, I'm a busy guy. I have a lot of personal issues going on, and I don't know if I want to do it. But for them, in a way, I feel like I have to. And that's one of the reasons why I stand before you tonight, just to tell you, keep an open mind. Don't let these new owners feel like they can just burn these leases and then all of a sudden have no tenants there. Because if you walk the businesses, and I know a couple of you frequent some of the businesses there, these are real people with real concerns. And it's not just a developer coming in saying, you know what, we're just going to develop this land and it's all for profit. But I thank you for your service, and hopefully as this progresses, and it's a ways away, but people are organizing, and you will be invited to meetings, probably individually, just to hear the concerns of not only the business owners, but the residents. And I stand before as a resident. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate you bringing it forward. And I will share that I received a number of emails and messages over this week, and so I appreciate the opportunity to clear up some misinformation that had been put out in the community. Someone had started an anonymous Facebook page called like Save the Dove Canyon Plaza, and told people that there were plans to construct 4-story apartments on this property, and was urging residents to write to us as city council members and to call us. And I did receive a few messages, and I did try and clear up for the record to those that contacted me the current status, which is there is no application of any kind that has been filed by the owners of this property to change the zoning or do anything with that property. The city doesn't have a single piece of paper relating to this. So there is nothing that has been decided. There's nothing that is imminently to be decided. I've never heard of any plans to construct a 4-story apartment project, which is what the page was also saying, and caused great concern amongst the residents that I spoke with. The city is just not involved in any kind of process at this time. The city is not taking anything away from anyone. The city is just going about our business, and it has nothing to do with that project at this time. So I hope that that is helpful to those that might be listening, and I remain available to answer any questions from any concerned resident at any time regarding this. Okay? So thank you for being here, Mr. Rabick, and for bringing up this important issue. That brings us to item 3, public comments. This is the first of 2 opportunities tonight to address the City Council on any matter that is not on our agenda. And if anybody would care to address the Council, we ask that you fill out one of these speaker request cards. They're located on the table in the back of the room. Please just fill it out, hand it to our city clerk, and we would be very pleased to hear from you. So I believe that this is for public comment as well. Okay, so I have 2 requests. I'm going to call. Next up is Pat Lawrence.
I did perfectly, didn't I?
You did. Good evening, Pat. Nice to see you.
Good evening, Tony. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm a resident in Dove Canyon for 22 years now. I've been very active over the years, and I've attended just about every board meeting we've ever had, as well as many of our other meetings. Last Tuesday night, we had standing room only. It is extremely rare in Dove Canyon to have 50 to 70 people in a room. They showed up because word got out just days before, widespread somewhat, about the Dove Canyon Center. I now know that it was the letter was sent out to all the property business owners on January 6, 2016, that the property changed hands and they'd be dealing with a new owner. Many of us know that center very well. It's struggled all along, and there's only a couple good anchors in there, and the rest of them usually rotate about every 3 or 4 years. So it doesn't surprise us that somebody would buy that and want to improve it or change it. So the room that was full of people happened to be the right mix of people. We had quite a group of attorneys. Some of them were acquisition specialists. We had contractors, contract company owners, and they asked some very intelligent questions. The new property owner, spokesperson that you're familiar with, that you've used on some of your other projects within the city, similar to this, as well as their developer was there, and a 4th person. They started off answering the questions. Tell me if I'm going to go too long here real quick, because I want to make sure I get this covered. They started off saying that their intent was to make this center profitable. They weren't certain exactly as how that would happen, but they would like to make it viable as a retail center. So that was good news to all of us. And so some of the people that were in there started to ask questions, and it started wavering. What the end result was, 45 minutes later, this company is known going all over the country, buying distressed properties, converting them to 3-story units. They said that their plan ultimately will be around 2020, maybe sooner, because the 3 long leases in there, they're out into 2020, may leave early. Others have already expired, and they're month by month. So they'll study this and see where they have to go. That's to talk early. The end result, they told us, it'll be 125 to 150 3-story units. They're going to be asking the city to rezone it if it's not profitable as a retail center. Well, no one's ever been able to make that work. So the group really got to what they wanted to hear. What are you really wanting to do with the property? The consensus of everybody in the room that got these kind of answers out of them said you wouldn't have bought this property knowing that everybody struggled for the last 15 years to have it viable. The businesses go broke routinely in there. So what is your plan? And that's what we ended up getting. The owner himself told us that. Now, it's one of the owners. This is a very, very big concern. I don't know if you guys quite know how big this group is. They're national. We heard a number the other day, how many thousands of units they've put in the country. So, several people wanted to come tonight and ask these questions. You're going to see this room really, really full as this plays out. You will see this come at you quicker than you thought, and it will be a rezoning request. So one of the gentlemen that's pretty sharp asked me to ask these questions of you. You know, we wanted to ask you some questions prior to the election, and you're kind of stymied that you can't do that. We understand some of that. Our board is in the same way. If your executive sessions or things are in the play, you can't really talk about them early. But we're hoping you can answer these questions. Do you support the rezoning of the Dove Canyon Plaza, period? Can you tell us anything on that?
This is public comment. We're not allowed to have a dialogue.
That's right. You have to, okay. So I would wait for a response. And
but actually we could, I think our city, this was great to provide this to us, the
Carol,
questions.
by the way, I know you live in the Dove.
Yeah.
On El Cater.
And I think our city attorney, we sent a letter about why we can't have this conversation.
I think most of the people in that room saw that.
Okay.
They're very concerned that we're not understanding some basic stuff. Are you intent on having a rezoning? Are you against a rezoning because it may not be the makeup of the city in that location that you would want? Okay. These are basic questions. I know you have strong feelings about auto centers and such, but here, the impact, if we have 150 units and there's 2 to 3 cars per unit coming out of that little intersection, it's going to overload the street. They're probably going to want to modify the side of that shopping center. They're going to probably get rid of RSM street parking.
Okay.
Okay. Pat, thank you very much for your comments. Just a couple things for your benefit and for the benefit of anyone that might be listening. Number one, first heard about this back in June. I got some questions from local residents in Dove Canyon, and I replied to them. They were published widely, including on a Facebook page called Save Dove Canyon Plaza. And the basic facts were reiterated a couple weeks ago by our city attorney when he provided a letter to the Dove Canyon Homeowners Association. Lest anybody be confused, there is no pending application. No one has asked the city to do anything at this point.
Right, we know
so
that.
There's not really an ability to have formed any opinion.
No one's met with us. No one's asked to meet with us. You've probably seen more than we have.
And that's what we understood.
We can't really have a back and forth, so I appreciate your comments, but just let me tell you some things that I'm aware of that are facts. And I'm happy to chat with you or anyone else outside of this meeting. Okay. There is no application that's been filed. Right. There was reference I heard, about the auto center and the proposed rezoning there. I think you and the residents of this community should take note that there was not a single council member that voiced a position in favor or against that until after all of those public meetings, and there were many, both at the Planning Commission level and at the City Council, had taken place. and the council members had reviewed over 1,500 pages of documentation. So for anybody to be asking any council member today, what's your position on the proposed rezoning when there's not even an application is, with all due respect, I think it's a little premature. We can't really have much more of a discussion, but I'm happy to meet with you outside of this, answer any questions.
We'll try and
I also would just take note, I heard you say with the election coming up, this is important. Sometimes issues get brought up at election time purposefully for political reasons.
No,
and I would just take note of that as well. Thank you.
7 months ago by a homeowner that's directly affected, lived right above it, then another, and we found out what they were hearing. They were talking to the owner's representatives, and it was exactly what we heard the other night. And we were shocked that this was actually playing out that way. So we will reach out to you. We would like to talk with you. We'd like for you to take our concerns, take into effect that there's 1,252 homes there. This will have a very big impact on them. And election-wise, it's nothing to do with that. It's to do with whatever's right when the time comes. Know that you're going to have strong opposition to what may happen if it plays out. That's all.
Understood. And as I said, and I think as our city attorney pointed out in his letter, there will be numerous opportunities for every concerned member of the public to bring those concerns forward, both at the Planning Commission and at the City Council. There'll be a robust discussion.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
However, I've heard, Mr. Mayor, that many of the residents in Dove Canyon didn't get the benefit of receiving our city attorney's letter responding to that.
That's correct.
Yes,
I think it went to the board.
Yes, and I had a number of people who told me they never saw the letter.
Correct.
So perhaps it might be helpful for Greg to just outline why we can't talk about it, which I think is helpful. You know, we're not stonewalling you or being that. I think it's just helpful or educational for the folks that might be listening.
Right.
And thanks, Pat. It's nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Just very briefly, the Dove Canyon Management Association sent a letter to all 5 members of the City Council inviting, requesting, directing that all 5 council members provide in writing their positions on a potential future rezoning of the Dove Canyon Plaza. The letter was detailed, indicated what the intention of the association would be, which is to then turn around and disseminate that information back to members of the public as well as to all 5 council members. The city manager asked me to take a look at that and review that issue for any legal concerns. My office researched whether or not that would be a permissible information gathering process that the elected officials could participate in. And I concluded that it would violate the Ralph M. Brown Act, which requires that all deliberations, hearings, discussions of any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of this council be conducted only at a noticed public hearing to ensure that there is full participation by all interested members, not just the applicant, property owner, but all residents of the city of Rancho Santa Margarita. And indicated in writing that it was my opinion that the City Council could not legally participate in the information gathering protocol that had been written and sent to all 5 members of the council. And that letter was transmitted back to the general manager of the association. I invited the general manager to contact me if he had any further questions or concerns. I did not receive a phone call back, and the letter is available for public review for anyone who may request it. Thank you.
Thank you. So just reiterate, happy to chat with you anytime, Pat. I heard you say how this has nothing to do with the election. I will let you know, I was disappointed to find out that council members received correspondence from an HOA delegate all about the election and misconstruing what was just said by our city attorney and directly making it a political issue. It wasn't a fact-gathering process, so I am concerned that some of this is that people are being manipulated for political reasons in these few weeks. I just think you should be aware of that, and I'm happy to chat with you offline about that.
I'd be happy to share the email with you that I got from the HOA delegate explaining what my position is on the rezoning, which was news to me.
Okay. I have no other speaker requests. Would anyone else care to speak? All right. Then.